once again to discuss things. To another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. Joining me today is a new special guest. His name is...
I'm Warpstar, owner of the Warpstar YouTube channel. I make content sometimes.
Sometimes. Yes.
Only sometimes.
So this is new guest, new thing. Kind of give you the story, the rundown, because this is a surprise episode of Geeky Gentlemen, not on our regular schedule. We're in the middle of a horror month right now, but I'm taking a brief little aside from that because I recently listened to the audiobook for the first novel in the Song of Ice and Fire series, A Game of Thrones, the titular novel that the television series was based on. And it's just kind of funny because I'm sitting there listening to this audiobook and Warp and I are in the same Discord server, Geeks for Fun. Everyone's welcome to join that too.
Yes, please.
And he's just posting in there one day. He's like, I'm listening to the audiobook for Game of Thrones. I'm like, oh shit, me too.
Yeah.
So, we just, I just finished today. I don't know how recently you finished it. And I just thought, fuck it, let's talk about this because what are the chances that we both listen to the same audiobook just like that, completely unplanned. So it was an interesting thing, and I'd seen you post a couple thoughts on this, and I'd talked to a couple people about it and stuff, and we'd messaged a little bit about it. But it's kind of funny because you seem to have, I think, the exact opposite opinion that I do. Because
I picked up on this a little bit.
Yeah. It's interesting because for me, ever since I was a big fan of the show as it was coming out. I watched it from the first season. I didn't come on late. I started really early on, like before the first season was even finished. I was watching it, and just that was 2011 or whatever. And ever since, I've run into conversations with people and I've talked to people about it and they go, oh yeah, if you like the show you should just read the book. The books are so much better. And I'm like, maybe. But then every single time I was ever told something about the books, I would oh really? And the thing for it is the show strikes such a different tone.
It really does.
That distinguishes itself from, I think, everything else that you would consider high fantasy. Mm-hmm. Your Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, what the fuck ever else you want to go with.
Right.
The show bases itself so hard into a very gritty realism, and I've talked to people about this over the years. When you watch the first season of Game of Thrones, if you miss just the right handful of scenes or you're only paying half attention, you can go through that entire first season until Daenerys steps out of the fire and think that this is not actually a fantasy show. It is just a show set in a fictional history. Mm-hmm. And you can't really do that with the book. The book is just so fucking extra.
I was wondering, because so I'm in the position of everything I knew about Game of Thrones was the South Park special where they made fun of Game of Thrones for a season.
Oh, wow. And last season, damn.
And then also when I was a younger person discovering things on the internet for the first time, I would piece together the story of Game of Thrones from the sex scenes that were uploaded onto Pornhub. So I'm like, oh, I heard these were good, and it's just exposition and people talking and
and then people begging.
I'm like, oh, okay. I have no idea what's going on here, but Jason Momoa is here. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. Uh, but yeah. So when our mutual friend Trip finally recommended that I read these books, I was on deployment. So I finally got to sit down and read those. And I was surprised that I was like hooked as easily as I was, because I've been recently struggling to get into that stuff. But as I was reading, I basically eventually made it to like book 2, because I'm a speed reader, so I was going through it, and then everyone on my ship also started watching the show at the exact same time, and of course clearing it at a much faster pace than I could read those books, which are combined longer than the Bible and still incomplete. So I got to see, the Pages versions first, which is kind of okay. That's going to, whatever your first impression of something is, it's going to mess with you. I think it's going to impact your opinion on a separate version. So I got to see scenes basically kind of in real time as I was reading, like, oh, I just saw that. How did the show do it? And I think I can understand the alternate history appeal. Like, it basically is just like, yeah, there's no goofiness in this all the way until the end. Basically, now there's dragons. Congrats. For the most part, the dragons are like the most fantastical element of that show.
Yeah, until you get like really late into it, where the whites start to become more and more of a thing, and like you've got the magicians in like season 2 and stuff, and it's not that it's devoid of fantasy. I caught myself remembering scenes from season 1 that like had just completely left my memory. Like Arya finding the dragon skeletons in the dungeons and stuff.
Yep.
But just so much of it, like I remember very specifically watching that first season, and I was like, so is this supposed to be like based on actual history? I'm like, fuck no, because there's no giant ice wall, so it's just like a fantasy show, but there's no actual fantasy in it. It's just a world of people that believe in this shit. And then fucking dragons, like, oh, okay.
Oh, it's fantasy.
Yeah, and so like I really, really gravitated toward that as I was watching it, because there was just nothing else like that for me. But then like just through the years, I'd hear people like say stuff about the books, and it'd be like, oh, really? I don't like that. She's actually got literal silver hair, I don't know, and purple eyes. Why? That's just so. And like it was funny because I was talking to my buddy Steve, who of course does this show with me.
I love you, Steve.
About the first chapter, or not the first chapter, but like very early on in the book, where you've got the scene, and it's a great example because both of these scenes are in both the book and the show. It's not like the show decided not to adapt it.
Right.
And it's the first meeting of Tyrion and Jon Snow.
Yes.
Where like everything about how they interact and like the conversation, all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes, is a really good scene.
Yes.
But the book just, again, it's just so extra in these really unnecessary ways, where like Tyrion is introduced by doing like a front flip off of a balcony.
So even
like,
even George has gone on record of saying, okay, maybe that was a little goofy to start off with, because Tyrion never does it. He never does that again.
I know, it's so funny, but like. But there's more than that, because I mean the show has like the fucking trek through the mountains to get to the Vale.
Yes, they spend a lot of time on that.
They spend a lot of time on that, and it's like the simple idea of a castle at the top of a mountain.
I've always thought about this too.
is just so absurdly. Of course, no one would ever be able to take it.
No.
Like it's so over the top, and then the fucking book's like it's not just one castle at the top of the mountain. It's a giant gate, and then it's 3 small defensive castles at the top of the mountain.
So cool.
And we've got to spend a whole chapter
climbing.
Like watching fucking Catelyn Tully or Catelyn Stark, whatever, climb this fucking mountain. And it's just so fucking extra. The other one that really got me, where I couldn't help but like kind of snicker and laugh, is everything that described Robert Baratheon's helmet.
The giant stag helmet.
Yeah, with like Robert when he was young, he had a giant he wore an armor and his helmet had giant stag horns off the sides of it. I'm like, you know how fucking useless that would be.
It's
like
so
you just
cool.
fucking yank him once and he's on his ass.
So you can't reach him. Robert was tall. You can't reach up there.
Fair enough. It's not like you got, I don't know, a sword that's gonna.
So what you'll find with these books is that the show really neuters the armor that is described in the novels, but
absolutely.
But there is actually a sub community of A Song of Ice and Fire fans that are just like characters have entire fan bases based off of like just the armor as it's described. So there's a character with like a cloak made of raven feathers, and I think George says he still gets fan mail like that cloak is so cool. That character design is so cool. Thank you for putting that in.
I mean, it's like some of them are cool. Like you get a really good description of Tywin Lannister's armor, that he's got like 2 lionesses on his shoulders that put his cloak on, and he's got like the male lion on his helmet that's like they're all ready to pounce. And I'm like, that sounds cool.
Yes.
But it's just so fucking impractical.
It's completely impractical, but we love it. Or I
and that's just the thing for me, that like those kinds of details and discussions. I remember my friend Bobby was reading through the books at one point. He's like, "Oh, I hope the spiders show up." And I'm like, "The spiders? Yeah, they got like spiders in this world that are like the size of dogs." I'm like, "No, I hate it."
I think he was fucking with you. I'm trying.
Oh yeah. I don't know. It definitely wasn't in book 1. I'd tell you that much.
You know what it probably is?
What?
There's lore for like the other nations that we haven't really seen in the books or the show, and there's a big world book about those nations, and I'm pretty sure that's like that might be an element somewhere in there, but I could be completely wrong. Someone in the comments, please correct me.
Or maybe it's just like a small scene that you've completely forgotten or something.
Maybe.
Who knows?
I got pretty decent, okay-ish memory for spider-related things. They freak me out. So.
I don't know. It's like just those details always kind of got me. So it was, and I'm not gonna lie, that was the thing that has like taken me out and made me like double take about the book as much as I did while reading through this. But outside of that, I did still quite enjoy it. It is really interesting to get to the distinctions between the book and the show outside of just the visual direction and like tone. Like this scene is played significantly differently than this scene, stuff like that.
Yes.
But so I've talked a lot about like the reason I like the direction of the show a lot. But what's your thoughts on it as far as the preferring the book to the decisions the show makes?
Well, for one, the Iron Throne looks a lot cooler in the books. It doesn't look like a plastic chair. I'll give the show some credit because I do think, like, as far as it goes, I'm kind of up there with everyone else when it comes to the Game of Thrones show opinion, where it's like, this was all really cool until season 4. And then people just kind of fell off after that. And I would mostly agree. You are kind of seeing a different kind of take on it. I just kind of, I like how grandiose everything is, because I understand that if you watch the show first, it's like, this is an alternate history. I perfectly get that. But I kind of went into it already like, oh, there are dragons and ice zombies and sex and lots of sex. And I went into it and I was like, oh, okay. Wow, this Dothraki wedding sounds fucking awesome. And then in the show, it's just like, it looks like a beach party like my cousins would have in Florida. is what I thought it was. I was like, oh, all right, cool. Um, where's Khal Drogo's mustache? He's got like a long, like, like, uh, kind of semi-racist caricature mustache, droopy mustache. I was like, where is it? So I was like, but visual direction I can forgive, for the most part, because it's like, okay, well that's how they had to do it, and the budget was not what it was kind of yet. It got popular after the first season. It wasn't like, no one really knew what to expect. So really, the visual design of a lot of the things doesn't bother me too greatly, because I can understand that it's easy to describe things on paper than it is to make a whole costume around it, like in real life, and build an actual like 30-foot tall throne made of swords grafted together. Like, you don't got to do that, and I don't really mind. I think what kind of bothers me about the show sometimes is the tone of some scenes compared to the books. Yeah, you might have seen this if you had heard your friends kind of compare, and then you would have just like listened to it or read it. The first scene where Khal Drogo and Daenerys finally like get married.
And the consummation, the wedding night.
The consummation, yeah. When even though you're reading the book and you're supposed to be like grossed out because it's like, oh, this is weird medieval consummation where we don't have the kind of like, you're kind of supposed to be grossed out because George R.R. Martin is really bad at writing sex scenes, but I think it's to its benefit. It's like you're supposed to kind of be like, ugh, George, shut up, please. But at least you can say in the book that after kind of the evening, Daenerys was like, okay, yeah, I can get down with this. But then in the show, he just kind of like rapes her, and then that's kind of like, then she falls in love with him like after the fact, rather than is starting to kind of come around to it on the wedding night. So I thought that was just a weird direction to take for Dany, just like in the show in that tone. But really, that's at least in this first book, like that's one of the only things I'm like, oh, D&D, you didn't have to do that. You could have maybe gone a different route with that. But also, there's a lot of scenes also in the show that I think could have benefited, could have been cool in like this book. That I think a lot of Game of Thrones fans and A Song of Ice and Fire fans will agree that scene in the first season of the show where Robert and Cersei like have that conversation about the Dothraki, and then they like openly acknowledge that their marriage is bullshit, and they both laugh together for like just a moment, pretty much. Like they just have a moment where they're not shouting at each other, hating each other. I was a big fan of that, because in the book, Robert just fucking hates Cersei, and Cersei hates Robert. And there's no correlation there, really. So I thought that to the show's benefit, that was good. And then also Cersei visiting Catelyn while she was watching over Bran before they left Winterfell, and like having that weird like, hey, I'm not gonna say that I killed your son, but I'm just trying to get something off of my conscience. It's like, why would Cersei do that? But it kind of seems like the exact kind of fucked up thing she would do based on what you know about her from the later seasons. So I thought that was a cool scene to also inject. Overall, I just am like, wow, the scale of everything in Game of Thrones is insane. Or A Song of Ice and Fire is insane. I kind of wish it had the same like color to it. Like you're reading and you can just like see the color based on how it's described.
No, I would agree with that. Like that's probably one of the things he does the best. Is just I can kind of see why he gets lost in a whole chapter of climbing a fucking mountain, because it's just, it is a really cool idea, and I mean, it's not that it doesn't serve any purpose. It shows you just how like dire Tyrion's situation is, and it makes his escape from that all the more impressive.
That's one of my favorite parts of that book, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the way he works himself out of that situation is fantastic, and I remember being very impressed with it in the show, and it does take on another dimension, especially because you just get so much more detail about everything that he has to go through in the show or in the book. Particularly that it's actually not the climbing the fucking mountain for me. It's the you get like a good chapter of him just in the sky cell.
Yes, just like thinking about how he's going to get out of it and getting beat.
Yeah, getting beat, and then there's just like the writing etched into the wall in blood of the sky is called, or the blue is calling me, or
yes.
whatever it is.
Like, boy.
Yeah, it's good. It's like really cool and terrifying detail, and you get other really good scenes like that. The Daenerys scene is an interesting one where like I don't really want to get caught up in trying to defend the choices made in either version, in all honesty.
Right. No, you don't want to say, I prefer the version where the 13-year-old girl gets...
Yeah, like, that's the thing, is, like, it's uncomfortable either way.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose if I had to choose, I'd rather see a scene between two actual adults than to see a scene between a 13-year-old, and then how do you make the scene with the actual adults as uncomfortable as the 13-year-old?
Right.
It's kind of like, that's another thing that I think, while I do respect, in some ways, Martin's commitment to as much as I'm like, oh, the show just goes for so much more of a grounded realism.
Mm-hmm.
They really do back off that with the actors' ages. They do cast the actors. I mean, not even just the child actors. Like, everybody's aged up in the show, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They do cast the actors to be a much more appropriate age, so that what you see them doing and talking about and having to deal with is still uncomfortable, but not like as dramatically uncomfortable as it is because of the ages in the book.
Absolutely.
And so it's an interesting choice, and I do have some level of respect for Martin for his historically accurate ages. Yes, in medieval society, 11 would be, all right, it's time to start thinking about who's your husband going to be, because you should be married by like 13. If you're 16 and unmarried, you're almost an old maid, kind of thing. So it's respectable enough within the context of the story, and within the fact that, like, for all that Game of Thrones is based upon, the or Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones together are based upon your fantasy epics like Lord of the Rings, yada yada. They are more so based upon Martin's deep, like, historical knowledge of stuff like the War of Roses.
Yep. I was gonna say, yeah.
So it is really interesting and I think fair to put characters of these very young ages in these very high stakes situations and very uncomfortable situations. Him doing that does make some of those moments, as uncomfortable as they might be, much more effective and much more understandable, because Sansa in the show at times in early season 1 comes off as just a complete idiot, because she should be old enough to not be falling for some of this shit.
Yeah.
Whereas in the book, she's, 11. And that you begin to understand why she's falling for these manipulations.
Yes. And why she's just
so,
being, like, pretty openly stupid or siding with Joffrey. She's just, like, she is just dumb. And it is painful to read Sansa's chapters in this first book, for sure.
I think Sansa probably has it the worst out of any of the characters that go through shit.
She 100% does.
Within the show. She just goes through the fucking ringer in this series. And that's, it's exactly the kind of shit that would happen. It's kind of, hysterical in that, like, absolutely bitterly ironic way that in the show at least, she ends up forming a kind of kinship with Theon that she never really had when they were in Winterfell together, because both of them just go through the shit.
No, and I honestly think that is a cool direction the show uh, went with. Between those two characters,
Yeah.
and that's absent from these books.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, everything season 5 onward is original to
Yeah.
the show. So
And I mean, it has to be. It's just interesting in that way. To me, I am very fascinated by some of those differences, and it's it was just a really I don't know what word I want. It was a very big read. Listen, but it just covered a lot of ground, covered a lot of details, and I guess I'd end up in a place of the perfect version of this story is probably somewhere between the book and the show. Because again, there are scenes that just really felt like unnecessary and kind of took me out of it. Like, love Tyrion. Tyrion's a great character. He's in so many fucking battles in this first book, and it's just not. There's that level of like, oh, well, it's so interesting to watch him try to muddle his way through these things, because he mainly survives by sheer luck in the book when he's like fighting the mountain men and then fighting along the river in the battle for his father. And it's just like I much prefer just in the show where he just gets fucking knocked out 10 seconds into the fight
because they didn't have the budget.
Because they didn't have the budget, but like it's so much more effective to his character, in my mind, to just have him like, he's gonna go for it, he's gonna go into it, and it just fucking blows up in his face, so to speak, than to have him muddle his way through the fight. I was just not as impressed by that as I think Martin wanted me to be. From the like writer's perspective of, oh, they're gonna be worried about Tyrion all the way through this battle. And I'm like, nah, I'm just sitting here thinking about how silly this is, because I don't need Tyrion to be able to like win or survive a fight to be interesting. It just it's not the part of his character that is fascinating to me.
I think that chapter, the vibe I've gotten, and I've gone through the book twice. The vibe I got from Tyrion battling against the river was, I think, more so just to really layer on where Tyrion is at with his father, which is very important for his later character arc. And also to, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the end of that chapter is, hey, by the way, Robb Stark pranked us, and he completely, like, he's about to, he cut around, and we've been completely outplayed, fighting a distraction.
I think that's actually the next time you catch up with him.
Okay.
It's after that.
I could be, yeah. There's, like you said, Tyrion's in a lot of war council and battles in these books, so maybe I got that mixed up. But, yeah, I would say I got less of the sense that it was they're fighting, and you're like, oh my god, is Tyrion gonna die? Like, I got it more like, here's where Tyrion is at. His dad is sending him to get killed. Doesn't this suck? Because I think at this point you're still kind of on the. You're still kind of like, oh, I'm pretty sure Tyrion will make it through this because I've been reading about him from his perspective. So I guess I didn't have that same sense of like
drama or intrigue.
Drama. It's just like, oh shit, they're about to fight. Yeah. Although I can understand why that might come off as like, this is the obligatory battle scene of the book, because they skip over the whole Jaime Lannister versus Robb Stark like thing from Catelyn's perspective later on, for the most part. So I can understand why reading it you would be like, okay, well this is the battle part.
Yeah. And it was also interesting to like see kind of the some of the nerdy choices I feel like the show made
Oh yeah.
little maybe like fan wish fulfillment stuff that the show decided to change in adaptation. Like when Ned gets his leg injured
Hmm.
in the show, it's like this whole battle with like Lannister men and stuff. Or I'm sorry, in the book, it's this whole battle with like Lannister men. Whereas in the show, it's like a one-on-one of Ned versus Jamie, and it ends on like that sour note where you still don't know who would have actually won, but you got to actually see them fight each other for a
I
minute.
do think that's very cool.
Yeah, it seems like a little bit of like fan wish
Like
fulfillment because
ooh,
obviously it could never happen in the books after book one, but you kind of
no.
like wonder about them.
And I've actually like been thinking like, man, was Ned even a contender? Was he like could he box people? It always comes off like he's just like decent because everyone chats up Robert and Jamie like all the time, but Ned is just kind of there and they gas him up, but it's like mysterious. So I really like that the show went with that and they actually kind of like, oh wow, they're really going at it. I wonder, and then they like, we're not going to tell you who it is. I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah, no, that's a good bit.
that is pretty good. But it's definitely wish
Yeah.
fulfillment. Definitely,
Mm-hmm.
here you guys
And I
go.
mean, it ends things on the same note. It doesn't change anything of substance, so
It's a
that's kind of
clever,
fine.
it's a clever change for sure.
Yeah. So I like stuff like that. It is kind of cool to get a wider sense of the Dothraki and like what their culture is because the show doesn't get to spend much time with them at all past season one.
No, they're just kind of gross in the show.
Yeah, and I mean they're based on like a combination of like the Mongols
Hmm.
and just other more tribalistic cultures and stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, in the book, you get to just kind of see the full breadth of that. That like, nah, being around these guys is actually just pretty fucking dangerous. We live in a society now that tries to be all like culturally sensitive and
Hmm.
stuff. I'm like, no, they're literally rapers and pillagers. They are kind of monsters, but
The
like Danny grows a
Yeah.
respect for them, and it's kind of an interesting dynamic to see that evolve the way it
Did
does.
you feel the tone just like completely change after um, they left Vice Dothrak and pillaged that like Lamb people village and just destroyed it? Like, could you just feel like the story change like right then and there when
A
Daenerys
little
looks out and
bit,
sees like oh
yeah.
everyone died.
The fact like the raping, and she's like, I am the blood of the dragon. This is the cost of war, and she just can't stomach it. And I think that was just an interesting. That's like the first time you really begin to see the kind of person Daenerys is that
Hmm.
she. Because we do this trope a lot, and I'm one of those people that actually doesn't hate the last season of Game of Thrones, and I think that my arguments there in the show, and it's even stronger in the book for the fact that like Daenerys isn't out of character, or isn't doing things that early season Daenerys never would have done
Hmm.
from the get go. The very first time Daenerys sees something she does not like, even though it is the norm, even though it is what everyone says is the way the world works and it has to be, she decides to change it. Consequences be damned.
Hmm.
And that is exactly what you see. It's like, oh, she knows that this is the way that war works. That you come in, you conquer, you kill, you rape, you pillage. She doesn't have any romantic notions about that. She's very like upfront. She knows that, and everyone is telling her that. And her reaction is, "I don't care. Change it." And so she claims all the female survivors as her slaves in order to deny the Dothraki their spoils,
Hmm.
which is a polite way of saying they're rape victims.
Yes.
And it's just it's the same logic she uses over and over and over again throughout the entirety of the series is I don't care, I don't like it, so I'm going to use my power to change it now. And there's this trope in biopics, historical fiction, historically set real events, whatever you want to call it, wherein we have a character that is a modern thinker in past times. They have modern notions in the past. Good example I didn't know about until earlier today, so I'm just going to use it. Jack Sparrow has a scene like this because apparently there's a deleted scene where he's talking with the head of the East India Trading Company, whatever the fuck guy's name is, and he's something. Like, yeah, and you find out that like Jack worked for him, and when he found out he was transporting slaves, he let all the slaves go, and that's what got him brandish it as a pirate. And he's like, cargo aren't people, mate, or people aren't cargo, mate.
Cargo aren't people.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's a, as a modern audience watching a character do that, and a character prescribed to our modern values, it's very empowering, and it's a pretty useful tool. But also, they are a modern thinker in a historic setting, so they are inherently disruptive. And so when you take that modern thinking past what is acceptable in our current state of affairs, then it begins to get dangerous, and you begin to see the same reaction from yourself and your peers and people of your time that the people of the past must have felt or would have felt. And I think that's just good writing. I think that's just interesting writing. I'm not gonna say that the show fucking like threaded the needle perfectly.
Right. I was thinking, I was like, oh my god, he's gonna go the whole 9 yards.
Again, it's not perfect. I'll agree that it was rushed, but I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people try to make it out to be.
And I would kind of agree with that. I think a lot of the stuff I have heard with what they do with characters and how they handle situations, I'm like, okay, that's stupid. But in direct regards to Daenerys just torching King's Landing and becoming kind of like a Nazi girl boss, like with the whole Hitler speech, I'm like, well, no, I can see her doing that. Like, that's not something that's unrealistic. That's not as out of character. Like, from where she is in the books, you can build her up to that point and justify it, even with like what has already been said. Even though she talks about being nice to people, even though she talks about, I'm not going to go massacre everybody to get the kingdom back, I'm just going to go do it. It's like, no, I can 100% see like that decision happening, but I can low-key see it happening in the book, kind of, if it goes the way I think it might, but I don't think it will. But no, so specifically that element of season 8, I was like, oh, you know what? That's not crazy to me. Like, I don't know why everyone hates that.
I think it's just because when you ask people certain questions, they, and even some of these questions are up for debate and kind of hot button issues, but people that want to think of themselves as good and righteous and just thinkers, like, so do you believe in reparations? Is like, I think, a really good way to come across this. Do you think that people wronged in the past should receive reparations for those wrongs?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you come across people that have grown wealthy, grown comfortable, and have not paid reparations because their comfort comes from great wrongs, whether or not the people of the time had anything to do with it, or they just are living off the backs of generations, do you think that there is repercussions that they should face?
Oh. Okay, yeah, I think I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, so like, if here's just I'll just lay it out, right? Have you ever heard the phrase or the saying that if you make more than $1 a day on a global scale, you are rich? Because of just how poor American dollar a day, how poor the rest of the world is.
Oh.
So when you kind of take all this information together, you begin to get this idea of like, all right, so then let's just say someone from the third world completely rose to power, got dragons, and was able to just use those and say, nah, reparations aren't good enough anymore. You just need to fucking pay with blood. It's you don't really have if you're like a quote unquote right thinker. It's really hard to argue against that.
No, she has dragons.
Yep, she has dragons, and so that's kind of the
tactical nukes of the Song of Ice and Fire world.
Pretty much, and so that's kind of the like logic that I always at least saw in it of like, yes, it might fucking suck and shit, but no, unfortunately, it's really hard to argue against that train of thought. And that's, sad and tragic, but that's the world. And so I don't know, I was kind of got it, and I was always a lot more accepting of it. She's not a very forgiving character. At every turn, when she has the chance to be merciful, she absolutely never compromises.
No.
Her mercy comes at the cost of complete, submission to her wants and desires. She never compromises throughout the entire show. And again, it was just really interesting to see that right away here. And I mean, that lesson is quite literally burnt into her so quickly because she tries to be kind and forgiving or not forgiving, but kind and merciful and stuff. And it just bites her in the ass because she's trusting of someone who has a vested interest in not trusting her, and not listening to her and trying to undercut and ruin her.
It's tragic to see the Miri Mazdur whole plot play out, knowing what happens.
Oh yeah, I kind of do wish I could have come into the book not knowing it, because I remember the feeling of watching that sequence of events happen in the show of like, that you see Khal Drogo kill Viserys, you see the assassin attempt to kill Daenerys, and like Drogo before that assassination attempt is no interest whatsoever in going across the narrow sea and attacking the Seven Kingdoms with his Dothraki, and then the assassination attempt's like, no, fuck this shit, I am going.
Fuck those guys.
I remember being like so hyped about that in the show, and you get, again, it's the same sequence of events. It's a really great, not a comedy of errors, but it is kind of a sequence very similar to that, where like, if you just didn't do these like very specific decisions, and Martin does a lot of that as plotting in this book, which is fascinating. These like certain decisions just lead to these errors that make things worse for everybody. And so I remember watching that in the show and thinking, oh man, once they get those ships, it's going to be fucking all over. And the next time you see them, it's like, okay, now we'll sell these slaves and we'll have enough gold for ships. And it's like, oh fuck, once they're over there in the Seven Kingdoms, everybody's fucked. And then it just all blows away in the wind in an instant, and you're like,
immediately gone.
Fuck, shit, damn.
And then she's just like, I planned it all. I was fucking with you the whole time. I ruined your life.
No, it is a very like gut punch sequence. Again, to that point of like these sequence of very small decisions that lead to just some absolutely phenomenal plotting, where like technically everything's happening because of major coincidences, but the coincidences themselves are so small and believable that you just completely accept it. The way that Tyrion just decides, no, I'm gonna go to the wall, I just want to see it, and then comes back, a night earlier than he was initially planning, and goes to Winterfell and decides not to stay because he thinks Robb Stark's being an asshole to him. And then like those two decisions are what leads to him running into Catelyn in the fucking inn at the crossroads.
So
Beautiful, brilliant plotting. It's just so simple, but it lines everything up so perfectly and believably. And it's not like other things aren't happening for Tyrion as he's just biding his time here. It's just so like just expertly threaded. And that's probably the distinction that the show is missing. For Martin, he does really good character work. Everyone like really praises his character work, but I don't think I hear people praise his plotting as much as I feel that they should, because
take it for granted.
Yeah, it's so expertly done. It's like that magician thing of, as long as you're doing everything right, no one will know you're doing anything at all. Just everything is so perfectly comes together in such a believable way that like you kind of forget that Tyrion is so far behind everyone else. Everyone else is already in King's Landing. So much shit is going on with Ned in King's Landing that by the time Tyrion and Catelyn run into each other at the inn at the crossroads, you've completely forgotten that kind of encounter would even have been on the table. And so much has changed about the characters and the dynamics since the beginning in Winterfell. It's just absolutely, expertly done.
It is.
That might be what the show's missing the most in that later season kind of thing, where suddenly these small coincidences leading to these great revelations and character moments and stuff just seem so much clunkier than they did in the early seasons. Absolutely. Because they don't have the books to build off of.
When they have like a whole major force to deal with later on in the season. When I found out that Cersei just like blew them all up, the Tyrells and the High Sparrow and whoever, and that's how she solved it and that's how she became queen, I was like, oh, that's lame. It's kind of okay. And then also later on with Arya killing the Freys just in one go, I was just like, oh, okay, they sure like to just kind of nuke, just kind of literally just take like a hammer to the chessboard and just like knock everything off like real quick.
It might just be the success of the Red Wedding episode.
Probably
because that was just all over like social media and everything, and like it's still a meme to this day.
Oh yes.
With the way that it all kind of came together. So it might just be that they kept trying to recapture that energy, and they never quite do.
No,
but yeah,
not particularly. So since we both listened to the audiobook, should say that Roy Dotrice, who read all 5 of the audiobooks for Song of Ice and Fire, he actually passed away in 2017.
Oh wow!
Very unfortunate. So for one, shout out to him, because I read the book the first time, and then this one was an audiobook listening while I worked, and I thought he did a fucking phenomenal job of nailing like character voices. And like
it's very consistent performance. It's really impressive.
It's like, oh my god, I really like his voice. I can't think of a better actor or a better narrator for these books, and I'm sad he's not going to be around for whenever Winds of Winter comes out, if it ever comes out.
If it ever comes out.
If it ever.
That's the thing. I'm still amazed of how little Martin has gotten out. For all the shit people are giving the show, like they don't really have much of an alternative, because at least the show fucking finished. I don't know what George is doing.
He was doing Elden Ring and TV shows and spin-off books, and
he really should be focusing on the main thing. Unfortunately,
I don't want to read Fire and Blood or A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, George. I mean, I'll take Elden Ring. I love Elden Ring, but
Yeah.
Brocephala, I would like to.
Yeah, you'd think you'd finish the main series before you start doing spin-off stuff in the main series world.
He said he was 75% done, so I'm gonna assume that means 2030.
Did you ever see the Conan O'Brien, George R. R. Martin spy camera bit?
I didn't see that bit. All I remember is the John Oliver bit where he goes on John Oliver and he says, "I just killed 3 of your favorite characters," and then looks back at the screen. And A Song of Ice and Fire fans, as mentally sane as we are, analyzed that frame, and AI upgrade scaled it to read what he was writing and found out that it was a chapter about Asha Greyjoy. Figure out what it said, but I never saw the Conan one. What one was that one?
I'll have to show it to you. It's really fucking good. It's just Conan O'Brien trying to figure out what George R. R. Martin's doing to work on the books, and it's just like he just keeps like he's got spy cameras all over his house. It's just he's just fucking around. It's so funny.
Conan's the best. I love Conan.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean it is kind of like disappointing because I'm sitting here and I guess this will be kind of the thing we end on of. I'm sitting here trying to decide if I want to continue on and I will not read because I'm terrible at reading prose, but whether I want to listen to the other audiobooks in the series because it is just, like kind of a disappointing idea that to think about the fact that I will easily finish the other 4 books before he has the next 2 out.
It is agony. I am in constant agony.
Because
yeah.
When did the last one come out? Was it during the run of Game of Thrones or was it just before it started?
It was I think it coincided. I think it was 2011. I know it was 2011, so I think it was the same
That's
time.
a long fucking time.
12 years.
Between...
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's crazy to me. It started in 96 and it's fucking 2023. Like, I agree. I know I've heard George interviewed about this and he's like, I do find it insulting that people keep saying I'm going to die before I finish the book. And I'm like, no, it's not that, like,
it's not that
your
we're
health
being mean.
Is the concern. It's the fact that, like, it's been literal decades.
Right.
And, you keep saying you're going to finish it and then fucking working on other things. Like, it's a bit infuriating.
Absolutely. He's an AO3 writer. If he was a published writer, he's me. I have the same habit of doing new stories before finishing one.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
No,
I do think that
it is a bad habit. It is 100%.
There's dipping your toes in other things and like juggling multiple projects, but at the same time, there is a certain level of but you gotta like finish something. You can't just throw it up in the air forever. And again, 12 years is a long time.
I think we'll end at a crisp 14. That's my optimistic hope is that that'll be the 14.
I mean, if you're gonna do 14, you might as well round it up to 15.
Might as well make us wait a little longer.
Yeah, I mean, but again, like, it's not even that. It's not that you're going to end at 15, right? Because he's got 2 books left to go.
Well, he has this one, and then I think the 7th one is supposed to be the last one.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, that's the thing. He's got the rest of the book that he's supposedly currently writing, and then you've got another one after that. And so you might be, what if that's another 12 years? Holy shit.
Right.
That's kind of crazy. But, I mean, at the same time, he's definitely seen the most success he's ever seen in his career. I know he's obviously doing notes for the House of the Dragon show, and, good on him for getting a lot of stuff in his world and developing it, and that's all great. But it's just, man, kind of sucks.
I am glad they made House of the Dragon because me not even knowing what Game of Thrones was, I was depressed by the amount of people who were like, this sucks now, and just completely hopped off of the TV show bandwagon and just no one talked about it anymore until House of the Dragon came out, and I actually did see some of that, not all of it, but like half of it, and it was really good, and
Yeah.
and people are actually into the world and Game of Thrones like again, and that makes me very happy. People are into that.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to watch House the Dragon go because they have like wide sweeping notes, but they don't have as like meticulous a plotting to follow for that show. So they get to. I think that freedom might make it a bit easier for them to do that series.
I did. I know we were trying to wrap up soon, but I was just curious. I get the impression that Daenerys was your favorite point of view character to follow, but I get
Daenerys was always my favorite, followed quickly by Tyrion. So it's very cool to just see them from this like deeper perspective. I like one thing I really did enjoy reading in the book is literally getting to hear Daenerys's thoughts.
Yes.
So like you get her dream sequences, and then you get like, I am the blood of the dragon. She has to keep telling herself that as like a mantra to get through like the hard decisions. That was just really cool and just a whole new dimension to the character that you never could adapt as perfectly in a show. So that was a really cool extra dimension to get.
I agree. In the show, it does kind of feel like she has like these moments of silences, and then she says something badass, and it's like, okay, I can see why she said what she said or why she's doing what she did, but this like this little more nuanced angle where you can see her grow from being like easily intimidated by a punk ass like Viserion, but then like turn it around, or Viserion is her dragon. I'm stupid.
Viserys. Yeah. It is just really cool to get that level of dimension. Also, it's very kind of silly, and this might just be that like, is that too extra? But maybe the book kind of won me over on the extraness. But at the end, I really liked in the final chapter, like when you get the reveal of the dragons and her in the soot and stuff. This is a change that the show made that I actually think I prefer what was done in the book, of like literalizing that she is their mother to the point where they are like actually suckling
They're
at her.
Nursing. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool detail that, obviously they're dragons, so you always like assume reptilian features, but fuck it, it's a fantasy animal, why not?
Yeah, no, I'm like, I noticed that wasn't in the show, and I can see why it wasn't. I don't know a CGI animator who wants to animate that. But I hadn't even thought about that it was a lot more literal that she was their mom in that sense. I think that's very cool now that you pointed that out.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting detail to get. And again, it's like such a cool fucking ending that she's just... And I remember loving that ending in the show too. But just, man, that is a great place for the book to end. I got to listen to that as I was driving to work this morning, and I was like, yeah, it's still so fucking cool.
I would absolutely love to hear what you think of the book versions of some of my more favorite characters leading on. So I think my favorite character like is Stannis Baratheon.
Yeah.
Because I think the show kind of does him pretty dirty from how like the books kind of portray him.
Which is interesting because he's not in the book at all.
No.
He's just mentioned and talked about a lot.
Book 2 is the Stannis book.
Yeah.
He's in the prologue chapter, and then from then on. And I quite like him. He's my favorite character.
I will seriously consider the second audiobook. The way I got this one was I needed something to listen to while NPR begged for money. So I went to the library and I checked this out on CD. And and the CDs were like really badly scratched, so there were just like whole sections. Where well, I guess I just skipped that, like half of that chapter.
Oh boy.
So I don't think I want to do that again. So I'll probably try to find it on like digital or something. But yeah, I will admit I do think, especially like with the fun of discussing it, I do think I'll continue on and go ahead and read the other books, and then if you're down, I wouldn't mind talking with you about them again.
Oh, 100%. There's almost nothing I enjoy better than gushing about Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones. I'm honestly surprised how into it I got.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really cool world. It is.
It's really good.
All right. Well, Warp, thanks so much for having this discussion with me. This was a good time.
Absolutely.
I always enjoy getting to talk about something, and again, just the fucking the George R.R. Martin-esque coincidence that led to this conversation.
Literally, he plotted this. He's writing reality.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher. You got one? You gonna do one?
Go 10 Black Part 2 sometime.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.
Oh boy.